this is Pearl Lam Podcast, and today I've invited a dear friend whom I've known for decades, actually.
I started as a graphic designer, and you were my first client when I left the Royal College of Art.
Hey, in my first gallery, you are the person who did the branding for my gallery. Yeah. I mean, each of those catalogs is beautiful.
I got a column in The Independent on Sunday. That was the first ever sex column in a broadsheet newspaper. And after the first one got published, we got taken to the Press Complaints Committee because people were outraged. Anyway, we won the case. Outraged that you would have a column about sex in a national broadsheet.
Suzi, it's so nice for you to come here. We catch up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Hello, this is Pearl Lam Podcast, and today I've invited a dear friend whom I've known for decades, actually, Suzi Godson. Suzi, can you briefly tell the audience who you are, what you have been doing, and not just about sex?
So I am currently co-founder and co-CEO of the Tell Me mental health service for young people. Prior to that, I'm also currently the Times sex and relationship columnist, and I've been doing that for 20 years. And I started as a graphic designer, and you were my first client when I left the Royal College of Art.
In my first gallery, you are the person who did the branding for my gallery. Yeah. I mean, each of those catalogs is beautiful. People didn't know, maybe, I started with a gallery in 1993. It's a pop-up show, so it doesn't have physical space. But I have beautiful catalogs designed by Suzi Godson. And each of the branding of the gallery is stripes. So each catalog comes up with the different stripes.
Yeah, it was amazing. We played with printing in such an amazing way, using special colors and foils and golds and silvers. But also, I don't know if you remember, it was the early days of the internet.
Oh, yes, I remember.
And we used to upload files from London to a university in the States so that you could download the files in Hong Kong.
And then that was in the 90s where today they download everything. I remember I have a staff there where downloading like the whole night, download the whole catalog. But it was faster than any courier.
Yeah,
we've done all that. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah,
and the exhibition which I curated for the French year in China, which the exhibition is a French influence in Chinese art, La France Mandarin. You did the whole book and the whole catalog. That was the last of the last we worked together.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
At that time, you have became a sex columnist already. And I thought, what? Suzi, for me, Suzi, you're so talented to be a graphic designer. And at that time, I remember that you said, okay, I'm going to do a PhD in graphics. I said, what? PhD in graphics? Are you crazy? I remember I used to come to your house and your daughter, Scarlett, would be sitting there. We had so much fun.
We did. I think we did some really amazing things. I don't know if you remember, but we were some of the first people to use like really, really fine laser cutting to do photographic images, but laser cut out of paper.
But we were trying to explore and pushing boundaries in every way.
And one of the other amazing projects we did for G's Club, we did the crockery. Do you remember that?
Yes,
and
whole crockeries. Yes.
Really early three-dimensional graphics programs designing this incredible crockery, which then got manufactured.
I still have it.
I have it too. It's so beautiful.
It's beautiful. And at the time, we were working with Noriko. the Japanese ceramics.
Yeah.
I mean, the porcelain. So you were doing design and we were doing, it was quite fun.
That was amazing.
Yeah, we have done so many projects together.
The trouble was, it was really difficult to continue that. There wasn't any other clients that worked like that. Yeah, I was like running a studio in London, and I was working for companies like Saatchi and Sony, and they were so boring. I mean, honestly, in comparison, it was just, and that I just thought, oh, I can't be bothered.
But at the time, it's really because since the first catalog, you gave me that confidence. I just let you to do freehand.
Oh,
You
well.
can do whatever as long as we love the cover, we love the thing.
It was so fortunate. I mean, I was straight out of the Royal College. I was, just full of ideas, and all I wanted to do was just experiment and to have a client that allows you to do that. And the problem with graphic design is it's a service industry where you are only ever as creative as your client. And I never had a client that was as creative as you again. And so
as crazy as me, right?
So I changed direction.
And also, I think at the time it was easy. It was Hong Kong printing.
Yeah.
We don't have the limitation of the printing here, because if I would have print here, it would be so expensive.
Yeah.
But because we have the Hong Kong printing, and later on it was China,
Yeah.
it was, it's easier that we can experiment all different things.
We did crazy things. I remember finding a factory in the middle of nowhere in England to print digital billboards that were the size of 15 buildings to wrap around the club in Shanghai, and standing there while this laser printer went across the floor of the factory printing. I mean, we really and also, I think because we were a bit naive, we just thought anything was possible.
Yes, we were naive because we didn't know the boundaries, because we don't know how much we can, how difficult everything is and how challenging everything is.
And now, I think now, if you attempted to do any of that stuff, first of all, if you work with a big company, like the cost would just be extortionate, and there would be so many meetings, and we just got on with it.
No, it's just you, me, and Patrice, three of us, and then, okay, just do it.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
If you think it's great, do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
It was so good.
I mean, that was the time, because I want something different, and I respect your creativities, and we just click.
I feel sad. My daughter Scarlett is a graphic designer, so it's not far from the tree. And she has, she is really an incredible designer, but she works very specifically with people that will allow her to do, the work that she wants to do. It's very difficult because it's become so mainstream. There's so much bad work. There's so much lowest common denominator stuff now.
And also money, budget. Budget is a limit.
It is. I mean, and people are very worried about AI. I think AI is an amazing tool, and I think if you use it well and creatively.
But AI must be helping a lot of graphic designers, right?
They're very anxious about it. They're very worried that it will take their job, and because it is incredibly good, you can do an awful lot, but it still can't come up with an idea. So if you can use it to mold your idea, you can use it very effectively. But if you just, ask it to make you a catalogue, it will just be incredibly boring.
I always wanted to ask you, from 90s to 2000, early 2000, you already started writing a sex columns. How did it all happen?
So what happened was when I got a bit tired of graphic design, I made a book with some friends. We got together and we wrote a book called Women Unlimited, and it was an illustrated, beautifully designed book, which told women how to do basically everything from, having a kid, getting divorced, repairing a car, having sex. And we sold it to Penguin, and they published it, and it was quite successful. But every time we used to go to a news round or to do media on it, the chapter on sex was in the middle of the book, and there would be a crack down the spine because the only chapter anybody ever read was a chapter on sex. And then myself and my friend got given a lot of money to write a book about sex. And at that point, I got imposter syndrome. I thought, what am I doing? So then I went to study psychology And so I ended up getting a PhD in psychology. That book was translated into 15
You mean the
languages.
sex book?
The sex book was. And then I got a column in The Independent on Sunday. That was the first ever sex column in a broadsheet newspaper. And after the first one got published, we got taken to the press complaints committee because
Oh, really?
people were outraged. Anyway, we won the case.
Outraged.
Outraged that you would have a column about sex in a national broadsheet. And then I moved.
That ridiculous, today.
But you cut. But that is a long time ago. That's like
20 odd years ago.
Yeah. But when you do things for the first time, you of all people should know that. It's never plain sailing, is it? You're always going to come up against.
But I don't care about judgment.
Yeah, nor
I
do
have
I.
no limits. Okay.
That must be why
you all follow, I lead.
Well, that's why we get on so well. Yeah. And then I moved to the Times, and I've been doing that for 20 years.
And so, when you were first writing in an Intergraph, a column, is it a Q&A, people sending you questions, or you actually write?
No, I get sent the questions. And in fact, what happens at the Times is they get letters in from people, and people never write a 3-sentence question. They write 400 paragraphs, and then in the Times they edit it down to a simple question, and then they send that to me, and I don't get involved in any of that. But because I've been there so long, I've seen how it changed with the different editors. I've had so many editors in that time, and some of them are quite racy, and some of them are incredibly conservative, and that determines what kind of questions I get asked.
Oh, so from Independent, how many years before you moved to Times?
I think I was only at the Independent for a few years, like 2 or 3 years, and then I moved to the Times.
And then Times invited you to join. So you gave up in an Independent?
Yeah, it was
because the Times, the readership is much bigger.
Yes, in a nutshell.
And they pay you better, of course.
And so, yeah, and I started, actually when I started, I wrote the column in collaboration with the Times doctor, who was a doctor called Dr. Thomas Stutterford. And he had been the Times doctor for 27 years, but then he retired, so I just carried on my own.
Oh. So, is sex important?
Obviously.
What is between sex, lust, and love?
Well, actually, I don't think you can take love out of the equation ever.
But don't tell me Tinder has anything about love.
Yeah, no, right? Absolutely not. But I mean, if we're talking, the difference between casual sex, which can be fueled by lust, or it can be fueled by desperation, let's face it.
Desperation, yes.
But if you want to have a relationship, you can't have a relationship without the combination of love and trust and commitment and emotional connection and understanding. And I think that the temptation to take sex out on its own and put it under the microscope, it's sort of nothing without all of the other stuff. And I think that's why porn is just so soul destroying, because, it's in the absence of anything other than sex. It's boring. There's only so many orifices. There's only so much you can do.
Sex and religion. Boring. Religion. Remember, good old days. I mean, it's not far ago. I mean, not many years ago. I mean, the whole Western morality. I'm not talking about Chinese. Let's talk about Chinese later on. Okay, Western morality is controlled by religion. Yeah. I mean, Christianity. And sex is fornication. Sin.
I mean, I grew up in Ireland. Catholic, I mean, it's obvious that I'm going to become a sex journalist.
Yeah.
I think religion has done so much damage, but we'll leave that out of the equation. I think that thankfully things have changed, but there's always a crisis that impacts how we think about sex. So in the 80s we had AIDS, HIV.
Yes,
we had
exactly.
massive advertising campaigns with glaciers and sinking ships and, people being terrified, not really understanding safe sex. We had the whole of the impact of that on the gay community. We've had Me Too, massive impact on consent. Now you have Andrew Tate. So actually, even if you take religion away, there's always external factors that impact how we think about sex.
Actually, when we talk about sex, the liberation of sex only started in the 60s when there was an invention of the pill.
Yeah, but
Without the pill, you wouldn't have the sexual liberation, right? So, do you think that sex actually equate to women's power? Because I see that because this freedom of having sex, the freedom actually take women out of these boundaries and give them that self confidence and also push.
I wish that was true, but I think there is an awful lot of double standards around it.
Of
You know,
course.
I think men can be players, but
Yeah,
women who
woman will be. I mean, you
exactly.
judge on a woman
Yeah.
being Scarlet Woman.
And that still stands today. And actually, I think Gen Z are even more conservative about sex. You know, they're having
you think
they're
so?
having sex later. They're having less sex. You know, they're very obsessed with consent. They're in terms of sexuality, they're quite kind of fluid on the one hand, but also confused. So there's a lot of changes in that area, but they are, I would say, on the whole, more conservative.
Is there a reason why? Can
Well,
you see the reason? Because the parents
because
are so liberated about sex, so
I
so the children do.
I don't know if that's true. I think there's a lot of helicopter parenting. I think that, you know, young people are exposed to 24-hour rolling news. The world is going to end. You know, Me Too movement. There's so much information being thrown at them, and they're still young and their brains are still forming and they're not quite sure what to make of it. And so their natural instinct is to kind of do nothing and just wait and see. So I think that, you know, and you look at underage pregnancy has really been tackled very effectively, but that's also partly because young people aren't having as much sex. So the government takes credit for awareness campaigns, but there is actually a big shift in that generation, and we have the birth rate is falling,
Yes,
which is quite worrying.
The birth rate is falling in all the major countries.
But yeah, I mean, so I think it's confusing, and you can see even from what I've just said how it's, you know, working in the area of sex and relationships led me very naturally towards young people's mental health. I kept getting emails directly to me from young people who were like, I can't come out of the closet. I can't tell my parents I'm gay. I'm 19 and I've never actually kissed anyone. These young people who felt that they were like the only people in the world that were in this situation. And so for years and years, I was thinking, if only I could get them to talk to each other, they could tell each other that they're completely normal, that there's millions of people like them, that they're not the only one in the world. And so, but I'm not a developer. So I met my partner, Shoshton, and told her what I wanted to do. I wanted to create an app where young people could talk to each other safely and share problems and support each other. And so we built Tell Me, and that's what we run now.
It's
together.
nice. Tell me, am I?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Tell me more about how it. I mean, you start with a sex columnist, and then you come out with books, right?
Yeah.
So, what are the books that you come? You first is the sex book. Second one is.
Well, they've done a book of my columns, which is actually quite amusing because they were taken from a time when I had quite a racy editor.
Your younger days, my dear.
Yeah. And I've done a book called The Body Bible, which is all about female body image, and that I did with a photographer called Harriet Logan, and we took photographs of women of all shapes and sizes, and it was phenomenal because most of them were naked. And so we took photographs of, you know, an 80-year-old woman who'd had a mastectomy in the early days of mastectomy, or a 25-year-old girl who'd had a breast reduction. We had so we were able to show every single aspect of the female body.
Actually, it's beautiful.
You know, it was a really amazing book. And then I did a few cookbooks, weirdly.
Really, cookbooks From sex to cookbooks.
Yeah, no, working with a chef, but designing them. And then I also designed books for the old Ivy and Caprice restaurants.
Oh, I remember that.
They were rather beautiful as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been busy.
No, and how about writing books then?
Yeah,
Beside the
no.
body?
I mean, I wrote all of them. I wrote and researched them, and I'm really into doing research. We do a lot of research through Tell Me now. We've done some really big projects with looking at suicide and self-harm, a big project with 2,000 autistic young people.
So how did you connect sex and mental health? And how did it comes to younger people? Because your daughters were younger, and therefore,
No, not
yeah.
well.
How?
Oh, yeah,
How did this evolve?
I guess I was aware, looking at my daughters growing up, that things could be difficult for them and for their friends. But it was really primarily through young people writing to me at the Times who had issues and who felt like they were the only person in the world with that particular issue. And I knew for a fact that there was millions of people out there with exactly the same issue. And I desperately wanted to be able to connect them. So I didn't set out to do something in mental health. I set out to do something that allowed people to safely communicate about the kinds of things that they wouldn't be able to talk about. So all the taboo things like sexuality, like sexual development, like feeling left out, like wondering about gender, all of these quite difficult issues that they feel very isolated about. I felt that actually if you could just connect the people who all shared those issues, that they would be able to support each other, and that would be a really useful way of helping.
Because I find out today, even for gender-wise, is much more complicated than my time. Because you have non-binary, you have this.
I just kind of think you have to just let people be whatever they want to
Yes,
be.
I absolutely agree.
All you can do is support people. People don't just wake up in the morning and decide that they want to be gay or trans.
Absolutely right.
It's normally surrounded by a huge amount of trauma and soul searching and shame and stigma and embarrassment, and who are we to judge? Really. So I feel that it's just really important to create, an area for so many of those young people. They have no one to turn to. They can't talk to their parents. And so allowing them to talk to each other and to come together in groups, which is historically what, gay pride was all about, what the Terence Higgins Trust did, it's traditionally there has always been specialist groups that support people who are struggling with specific challenges. In health, that's really common, cancer research or Macmillan or any of those, but less so in areas around mental health or sexuality. And so all I've done is take that and make it digital.
Yeah, but then, I mean, I always question why today the young people, I mean, mental health, this word mental health has become such a big thing. I mean, it's just pop out the last 10 years, 10, 15 years. Can you understand why? Or forever we have that, but we never talk about it. We never put it, we never are aware of it. Or is it we are exaggerating all that?
Well, it is incredibly complicated. I mean, historically, people with mental health issues have been treated incredibly badly. They've either been institutionalized or exercised, marginalized, stigmatized, all of that. And so people didn't talk about it. And, if you go back to people coming back from the Second World War who had PTSD, who had been absolutely traumatized, there wasn't any help. And so they just bottled it all up. And so historically, it's not something that people have felt okay talking about. Now it's gone completely the other way, and we have adopted the language of mental health. So we casually say, we're depressed or we're anxious because we feel those things, but they're not a clinical diagnosis. And there's a very big difference between, routinely feeling a bit down in the dumps and actually requiring a diagnosis of depression. I think there is issues around over-prescribing with antidepressants. I mean, this level of prescribing is off the charts. And that is because, you get 10 minutes in a GP appointment and everybody wants a solution. Everybody wants a quick fix. And the reality is, it's not necessarily the best solution, certainly not for young people. But there's no money, there's no systems in place to provide alternative forms of support.
But I find out a lot of doctors just prescribe medicine after medicine without really clearly identifying the problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody has time to go for root cause analysis. And even things like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which has been rolled out on the NHS. But the reason it's been rolled out so widely is because they did a massive study with a very eminent economist who showed that it would save the NHS a lot of money. So it was a money-making decision to choose that.
It's always about money.
And then it has been implemented badly. So for young people, they might get 6 sessions. It does nothing, and there's no outcome measures. So, it's just not. It's not useful.
Not helpful at all. The support is minimal.
Yeah.
So when did you start to tell me?
So we started in 2017, and basically what we've built is native apps and a web app where young people can talk to each other about any topic. We have about 200 topics, and they can pick a topic, anything from, sexuality to autism. Click on that topic, and they're in a feed talking to other age-banded young people anonymously about whatever they want. But everything is pre-moderated by humans. So a human checks, risk assesses, and topic tags every single post and reply. And anything high risk gets sent to a counsellor. We've got in-house counsellors all day, every day, in-house moderators all day, every day. And it's just a safe system where they have 365-day support. They can talk about anything they need help with, get advice. We've got a big directory of all sorts of resources. It's really simple, but it's very, very, very effective. And we've been independently evaluated by University College London, and they found statistically significant evidence that using Tell Me improves mental health.
So when you have this idea to set up Tell Me, did you actually consult with a medical board, or you feel this because you feel that these young people need that communication?
We followed a method called the lean startup. I don't know if you've heard of the lean startup. Basically means that you just build it, try it, fix it, iterate, So
Try and error.
We built a really simple MVP, and we tested it with 16-year-olds in 3 different schools, and they hacked it to death. And then we learned and we built, but we knew from the way they used it that it would get used. We were completely altruistic. We didn't have a funding model. We didn't know how we were ever going to make any money. But that was like 2018, 2019. By 2020, we had 20,000 users, and we'd had investment. We went into COVID, and suddenly we came out, we had 40,000 users, and we were like, what do we do? So then we started selling to the NHS. And so now we're not nationwide by any means, and selling to the NHS is very difficult, and they operate it's glacial trying to get decisions made. But we're in about 6 different regions, and we're now serving adults as well, and we've had a lot of grant funding as well to do our research, because obviously we're generating unbelievable data on what's happening with young people, and it's incredibly exciting.
But your age group is from 11 to 25.
It was 11 to 25. In fact, it was 11 to 18. Then we moved it to 25.
11 to 18.
And then we moved it to 25, and now we're commissioned as an adults all age service.
Hold on. 11 years old has mental problem?
Oh,
really?
God, yeah.
11?
Yeah. But Tammy's age banded, so 11-year-olds are only ever talking to 11, 12 and 13-year-olds. And the things that they talk about are issues like bullying or problems
Oh
with
yeah, bullying.
friends, or, I've had a fight with my mum, or so they are talking about different kinds of things. But, the self-harming is really, really prevalent in
Yes, I know.
11-year-olds. And also they're at that transition to secondary school, which is a very difficult time. So, yeah, it's horrible to think that kids of 11, 12 and 13 are
Yeah.
dealing with these issues. But it's, it is happening. So we need to get that support to them.
How are you seeing that? Now mental health, this issue is everybody's talking about it, newspapers writing about it. Do you actually feel that with more support, this mental health issue could be controlled?
Yeah, because all of this is, we have a crisis, but
Parents are not understanding.
nobody
No,
is
they don't
spending,
have time.
nobody's spending any money on early intervention. You've got to pick things up before they reach crisis point, and that simply isn't happening.
I'm sorry, you mean England? I mean UK is cutting cost of budget on everything.
Exactly. So, and also what I find amazing is there's all this talk about the mental health crisis and the problems and the fact that there's, it's incredible. 1 million children are referred to child and adolescent mental health services. You have to be really severely ill.
1 million.
Yeah. 350,000 of them get turned away once they're referred. Another 350,000 are still waiting a year later to be even spoken to. So it's just appalling. I mean, it's actually just dreadful. So what we're trying to do is provide support that they can just download and use straight away. So there's no barriers, there's no treatment thresholds, there's no waiting list, nothing. They can just act. If the NHS will fund it in a region, they can have it immediately. And that, I think, is really important. Because, this relatively small, the suicide rate in under 18s. However, it is the leading cause of death in young people. And for every suicide, there's another 20 suicide attempts. And if you think about the cost of that to the NHS, I mean, it's a false economy.
Such young age,
I know.
Wow. This is frightening.
It is actually
frightening being parents.
I really didn't set out to be doing this. I set out to sort of solve a relatively simple problem, which I thought I could do, which was to help young people to talk to each other safely.
It's better for you to talk about sex.
But and sex is a big issue. So allowing them, where else can they talk safely about sex? Can they ask those really difficult questions? Tell Me allows them to get help, proper support with things that they can't ask anybody else about. Once you talk about things, it's much easier. You feel much better almost immediately.
So
we have about 20 staff. But I am about to set up a charitable foundation because I do believe that we can bring in philanthropic funding to help support, like we're supporting children who are living in care, children who are young carers, children who are in just really, who are, really the least advantaged children in society. And they're not in regions where it's funded by the NHS. So I'm setting up a charitable foundation so that we can fund those kids.
That is very important. If we talk about like 11, 12 years old, they want to kill themselves, that is very sad.
Yeah.
And especially when UK population is really minimizing, dwindling. So,
but I've got a nice story. We have we do a podcast as well because I felt that it was really important to hear what it's like for these young people, because actually we read a lot in the papers, but we never really get their stories or hear their voices. So we've got a podcast called the Tell Me About It podcast. And in episode 2, I interview somebody called Thomas, who basically we saved his life when he was 15 years old. He found Tell Me. He'd been waiting 18 months for help. He was suicidal. And within 5 months, the community had supported him. He was eating because he hadn't been eating. He wasn't self-harming anymore. And now he then came and worked as an intern for us. He's gone to university studying media, and he's now producing my podcast for me. It's so great.
A beautiful story.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very touched. Okay, what does your podcast do? Tell me.
I just literally interview
all those
young people, and they all have.
Do they share their problems?
Yeah, they're very open. I'm just about to do one with a young person who's 16 and living in a residential care home. We've done podcasts with people who've been sectioned, people who are talking about coming out for the first time, people who've been suicidal. Like it's actually quite fun. It sounds really depressing, but when you hear these young people and the challenges they go through, you realize that the media has such a sort of surface approach to what's going on. This dismissal that kids are just being harmed by social media, and it's a wake-up call listening
But the social media is very pressure. I mean, it gives a lot of pressure to all these kids, but these kids are addicted to social media.
It's a sort of a double-edged sword, because for some it's a lifesaver for the ones who are really isolated. They've done repeated studies, and they have not yet been able to identify a definite causal link between smartphones and poor mental health. There's an awful lot of research, like Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, has got all sorts of research that he purports shows that it's really, really damaging. But the BBC just ran a massive study, and they can't, because the smartphone itself is used for so many different things. They use it to do their homework, they use it to take photographs, they use it to watch the news, to read books, to do
Absolutely
puzzles. Right. It's like, what is the component? And obviously, like social media, there's, it creates all sorts of issues around social comparison, and it is problematic.
It is problematic.
Yeah, that is problematic.
Yeah.
TikTok is the worst.
Yeah.
But it's...
Yeah, I know, but sometimes you switch on, you see the TikTok. I think kids are so addicted to
it's
TikTok.
like glue.
They want to know what people is doing. They want to know what is hype, what is not.
But it's quite funny, because a lot of old people are now using it. Like my husband just got Instagram about 3 months ago, and now he's constantly looking at dog videos.
No, really? Dog video?
Yeah, dog rescue, dog videos. I mean, it's
It does, because my friends, they compare dog video, whatever cute they send it to me.
But it's designed to be addictive. I mean, it's absolutely very cynically designed to be addictive.
But addictive to certain age is one thing. For younger people,
I think it's a problem for everybody. They now are doing experiments where they see later language development in babies because their mothers are on the phone the whole time and they're not talking to them anymore.
Really?
Seriously. So I'm doing a lot of co-creation work, which is like I get small groups together and I work intensively with them designing things, because part of what's different about how we work is we work with the young people to get them to design the solutions, because what do I know? Like, they're the ones with the issues. But that process itself, actually meeting weekly, doing something structured like design work with kids who've got really big issues, is incredibly positive. Like, the impact on their mental health is amazing. It really builds their confidence. And
wow, what a big change, huh?
Yeah,
it's a big change.
But you know what? It's not that big of a change. It's still designing solutions. It's still design. It's actually, there's no way.
No, but it's more contact.
Yeah, but there's no way I would have been able to do any of this if I didn't have a design background. And actually, I think that that's what differentiates what we're doing, is because we haven't come, like lots of people set up a charity, they haven't got a clue about branding, about design, about communication, about how to present something in a way that it would appeal
Don't
to a
you
young
think
person.
that if these young people, if they find passion, all those mental health problems will be much,
I think
I
mental
mean,
health,
would be resolved?
it often improves at around the age of 24. And you know what happens at 24? You start living your life. You're an adult. You're independent. You're agentic. And so they do see a big improvement in mental health after the age of 24. When they finish college, uni, all that exam stress, all that competitive.
No, but then when you start working, if you have focus on your work, you won't think about so many problems
Well,
of
I think
yourself.
when people are doing stuff that they love,
Yes, of
they
course.
feel better. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Passion really helps.
Yeah.
Because most of the people, they don't even know what is their passion. That's a fundamentally big problem.
Yeah, I mean,
I know people who doesn't even know what they really like to do.
I think that's true. I think I feel
All
very.
they know is they have to make money.
Yeah.
They want to have a big house, glamorous thing. But at the end, you ask them, what is your passion? And usually they say to me, please don't pressure me. I get sad because I don't know.
I feel really lucky that I had that kind of drive and curiosity to kind of, as you say, when we started out working together, it was like, oh my God, let's do this. And I've sort of continued to be a bit like that.
But it's good because we ache each other, push you. Yes, do it.
Yeah. Well, we should work together again.
Yeah, we should. Yeah,
come
I
and
think
do some stuff with me. I think
would
you'd
love
love
to.
it.
Love to.
It's really meaningful. It's really purposeful, and you're saving people. It's amazing.
I'd love to do that. Yeah. I think now you're going through a very meaningful path.
I am. Yeah, I am. And
all your daughters must be so proud of you.
Yeah, I've set the bar quite high for them.
So funny. I would love to see your youngest one.
Well, come for dinner.
Yeah, I would love to. The youngest one is studying where?
She was at St. Martin's, but she's going to move to Goldsmiths.
So this is the one who wants to be a singer.
Yeah.
And how about the twins?
The twins are kind of working in politics.
Politics. Suzi, it's so nice for you to come here today. We catch up.
Yeah.
We have a good talk. And now I know that you are doing even more crazy things than before. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
It was
Johnny.
fun. Bye.